Hello, ladies and gentlemen who might be watching, of course. Welcome to another session of Own Your Yes Live. I'm your host, Valera Wilson, and this is where we have our weekly chats and hear from amazing, resilient women who share their stories and struggles on the way to success and the lessons learned along the way. I am so happy today to have Melissa Powell. She's the CEO and founder of Pomci. And we're going to talk about pursuing your purpose and your passion. And so I can't wait to dig into that because so often it's easy to get focused on the goal or the next or to chase things because maybe it looks good to someone else. But I think it takes some special introspection to really think about what is that we're passionate about and purpose to do. So thank you so much, Melissa, for joining. I would love to share with listeners your background and what you do today.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I love having these kinds of discussions. So as Valera said, everybody, my name is Melissa Powell, and I am the founder and CEO of Pomci Inc. And we are a SaaS company that focuses on simplifying and resolving issues centered around high-skilled immigration. So Pomci, actually, it came from piece of cake migration. So I know people are always wondering, where did you get that name from? But that's really what we try to do, make it an easier process. And we just, in that respect, basically, we help people to move or facilitate high-skilled migration based on jobs. And so we connect people to jobs in other countries and then help them through the entire process. In that respect, we just launched another product, and that is focused on the repatriation side. So if there are people out there who want to go back to their home countries or move to the countries of their ancestors, we can connect them to jobs that to companies that are looking for international talent or with cultural affinity. So,
that is awesome. Oh, go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
That's it in a nutshell. So we're good.
I love that. I mean, I'm just sitting here. I'm listening and think, wow, who knew? I know that I've heard of expat and all, but to actually talk to someone who does it for a living and that's your business, that's unique and amazing work. And it's definitely, I know that we've talked about, you shared your initial starting out of where you started in your career. And so I would love maybe for you to share, where you started out in your career and what challenges presented themselves along the way to get you to doing this, because they're totally different things based on what I know we know.
Yeah. So basically, if you asked me 20 years ago, what my passion is, what my drive is, I would have told you I'm going to be the greatest architect out there in life. And I do still have the passion for architecture. So that's what I studied first. And I worked in the field for a while, moved into construction management because I felt like I needed to learn to manage. If I was going to have my own architectural firm, I would have to learn to manage the whole process. And so I did that for quite a few years. And a part of that journey took me, I'm from Jamaica originally, and a part of that journey took me to the United States to work. And so I went through the whole work permit processing and all of that stuff. I am my customer. And eventually I moved to Spain and then moved back to Jamaica. And throughout that entire process, people knowing my experience would always reach out and ask me, how to move to another country and keep your career, like not teach English or change just because I want to move. And for years that continued. And while I was in Jamaica working, I realized also how important my international experience was to the company I was working for, as well as the people within that company, right? And so I decided, I think I was like, this process should be much easier. Why isn't it much easier now almost 10 years later after I first did it using yahoo.com.
Wow.
now
Thanks.
there's like now there's like Monster and LinkedIn, which we're on now, which is an amazing platform. But people are still having problems when it comes on to them trying to move to another country. So I said, let me look into how to do this. And I got my first start at it by going to the Branson Center for Entrepreneurship, where they helped me to create some kind of a plan and kind of flesh out the idea. But as I was doing that, and as I looked more into this process, I realized that it was so much more of a problem than just the fact that people can't move across borders easily. I learned about how important high-skilled immigration is to the growth of countries, to innovation and creating jobs. I understood as well how much if we had leaders that, and this is something for me, I've always been someone who has been empathetic to people in general and just, want people to get along. I mean, everybody wants that, right? But I kind of actively do that. And so as I was doing the research and realizing, this is a major problem because we have huge labor shortages. The talent mobility space it's totally defragmented. People are all over the place. I said, we really need to also have leaders who are moving across borders. The more leaders we have who have experienced international work, is the more they will be tolerant and understanding of other cultures, which I don't mean to sound, beauty pageant-ish, but it eventually does help to improve on the peace that's within this world, right? Because of that knowledge and understanding of other cultures. So that is really what drove me to keep going and building this business out into what it is now.
Wow. What were you? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What were as I'm listening to you, it's interesting, and it sounds like you start to unravel the fact that it was a greater problem as you start to figure out that you wanted to make it into a business. What were some of the challenges that presented themselves along the way? Because you were coming from being an employee to now moving into something that you were passionate about because of what you'd experienced. And I think of so many people, a lot of times our pain becomes part of our purpose or our passion. What were the challenges, though, that maybe presented themselves along the way to you standing this business up?
Well, there are so many.
We can laugh about it now, right? We can laugh about it now, but
so, one is the fact that I completely shifted into another space, which included 3 different industries. So there is the HR industry, there is the technology industry, and the immigration industry that I had to learn. And then there's also, of course, growing up in a heavily colonial island. The way that we're brought up is that, you kind of work your way up and you can't necessarily come up with these amazing things at such a young age or whatever it is. So there's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes up with that. And then some of that imposter syndrome was also fueled by, as I was moving through these spaces, I have been disrespected and just taken advantage of or underestimated because of my size, my color, and my gender, right? Who is this girl? She's this little island girl who is not old enough to be anybody's mother. So what could she possibly know, right? And so those things caused a lot of problems. I've had people at all levels steal from me. And, it's a lot that you go through. But once you keep your eyes on where you're going and also kind of understand that some of these things that happen, it has nothing to do with you. half of the time you're just collateral damage, right? And you just have to keep going.
Interesting.
You just have to keep going, and you can cry about it for a day, but get up and just move forward from there, and see, sometimes it is you. Sometimes you have to make a change. So you also need to understand those differences. And so those are the main things that occurred as obstacles, but then also me deciding to do this at a later stage in life. Well, later for some people, not later for others, right? But a woman who is approaching 40, you also have to deal with the obstacles of trying to deal with the entrepreneurial emotional roller coaster, as well as trying to find that life partner. So actively putting time into, going out and dating and dealing with that additional emotion.
That is time. That's definitely time and energy.
That's something that I think that we don't talk about enough as women building businesses, because it's important. I mean, whereas a man can, not that it's not important to men to have families, but at the end of the day, they can say, I'm 50 and I'm ready to start a family, and just get a young girl.
That's a whole nother session, by the way. But yes.
I just brought that up because of, the obstacles that along the path of building this business. But
absolutely. No, I appreciate you laying those out, and it's so very real. I mean, who thinks about that? You mentioned you have to learn immigration, technology, and HR in the process of starting this business. So I mean, 3 different areas of function. And then you're learning, how, dealing with your own imposter syndrome because of where you've come from, in the sense of you can't have these great ideas and you should have paid your dues already. You're too young. And then the stage of life that you're in, right? Your stage of life that kind of puts that pressure to say, well, how do I balance all of these things? And as I'm going on this emotional roller coaster, as you call it, of being an entrepreneur. And so I appreciate that transparency, because so often we don't talk about those key areas, and they're all colliding together in the process of pursuing what you're very passionate about and purposeful and want to do. And then in that, like, how did you have to address, specifically, as you mentioned, talking about that imposter syndrome, and I've written articles on that. How did you have to address the belief of being a newbie in the space, so that you could still say, but I'm going to move forward anyway? How did you have to address those moments of self-doubt, or feeling like I'm so new at this, I don't know what I'm doing?
Well, a lot of it has to do with constantly learning and not slacking off on learning things, and also acknowledging when you don't know things. It's also important to surround yourself with people who are in the space, or even the people, just business people on a whole, who may be at your level of thinking, or at a higher level. Because those are the people who are going to call you out and be like,
right,
what you're saying, that's nonsense. Or, that's really a good point. Let's talk about it some more.
Right.
And that's how you kind of get over this newbie thing. And then also to think that, you're always a newbie.
True. True. Good point.
Varying levels of newbie.
I love that. Say that again, please, Melissa. Say that again.
You're always a newbie. You're just varying levels of newbie. But also to just, I remember one day I was in a room full of people having conversations, and people looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Right. And just 3 days later, I was in another room of people who are leaders in the space, and talking to them about my idea, and them being fascinated and wanting to talk to me more. Right. And so that kind of thing is helpful, that, just putting yourself out there and talking about it, because if you don't talk about it, you end up with these stories that you create in your mind about how you're doing, when sometimes they're just not the reality of things, right? And if you don't know the reality of things, you can't address things properly. So those are some of the ways that I went around the newbie situation, and I I put myself out there to try and help people to. I remember the University of Miami asking me to come in and talk to their students about the process. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know, but you go and you do it and you realize that you do have the knowledge. And what you have, people want to hear, and it's helpful to them, even though you think it might be not enough because your vision is so much bigger. The small amount that you do think that is a lot to somebody else, right?
Oh, that's good. I love, you said a few things that I'm just soaking in right now. One is I'm going to say it again, and you can say it again at some point. It's like there's various levels of being a newbie. Like you're always a newbie. I love that. If I could just, maybe I'll put that on a wall somewhere. It's like you're always a newbie, because I think we forget that we're evolving every single day, week, month, year. And we're always going to be a newbie at something. And so and I call that growing pains, in different articles that I've written, because I think we forget that. And I see a comment that's come in. Cherie says, we think that many of us suffer from imposter syndrome when we step into unfamiliar territory. Absolutely. There's data and research that shows that the imposter syndrome feelings increase when we're doing something new. And it makes sense because we've never done it before. Right? You don't know. It's unfamiliar territory. And so seeing ourselves always as a newbie, I also think is very important, because it forces us to always feel like what you said. I always wanted to learn. I'm always learning, right? If you feel like you've arrived and you're never learning anything new, you're not growing. And so maybe that balance, of course, is that you always put yourself in a position to be learning and to surround yourself with people that you can learn from, or that you can, and then to balance out that noise. Sometimes you're going to get a negative, and then you're going to get a positive. So record the wins the positives. It sounds like, people that are fascinated with you, I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to replay that in my head, as opposed to replaying the ones that weren't so, unless it's good and valuable and constructive feedback, right?
Exactly. And sometimes it's not so much. You have to also know your audience, right? So if your audience is not in your space, you have to work on your delivery.
Good. Yeah.
Right. You have to work on your delivery. Don't expect them to know all these fancy terminologies that are used in your space. Work on your delivery, and then you can have a decent conversation with somebody who knows nothing about what you're doing.
Yeah. I like that. I love that perspective. And something you also said, you said, not minimizing what we do. When you talked about the University of Miami, is like you make a really good point about when we have such a larger vision of something and we're not yet there. It's almost like you see yourself at the finish line, but you just started. It can be discouraging, and so you minimize the little bitty things on the way. But you said to really look at it and say, but what I have to offer right now, I may feel small, but it's still valuable. And I think it's so important not to forget that. Is that, the finish line is down there, but there's small steps that you've got to take to get there. So every small step matters. I love that in the journey, because we can get impatient on the process to figure out what are we going to be doing, what are we passionate about, what are we purpose for. That's a lifelong journey, if I were to say.
I am generally a patient person in life, but when it comes on to like this, the business end, I am the most impatient person in life.
Yes, I'm not. I could believe that, but that's what makes us ambitious women, right? We're ambitious, and so we have goals, and sometimes that kicks into overdrive. Let's talk about something that I think happens very often, and we know this is, sometimes I think we believe that because we're passionate about something and we're pursuing it, that we won't be exhausted or tired of it at some point. Like, and that's where that superwoman cape can come in, where we feel like we have to keep the cape on at all times. What do you have to tell yourself in those moments of fatigue or doubt to keep going?
Well, you have to tell yourself that rest is okay. And take rest. That is one of the main things. And then you have to, I found it helpful to kind of, when you're in those moments, write down all the things that you think you've accomplished, maybe in the last year or month or whatever it is. because that helps you to feel a little bit more energized to say, oh, I actually have done stuff, even though it feels like I haven't done anything. Because a lot of the exhaustion comes from you mentally thinking that you haven't done enough. I see Ida saying, yes, grant yourself grace. That is something that I have been preaching to people for the last, I don't know how long. Grace is so necessary, especially in this pandemic.
Yeah.
We have to give ourselves grace, and we have to give other people grace. Because, I myself, during the pandemic, because one of the things that I used to do to kind of keep the energy going and keep going is to ensure that I have time outside of the business. So whether it's to do a sport, for me, that was playing polo, or, making sure that I go and have dinner or lunch with my friends and family at least a few times a week, just to keep that something outside of work, which helps to calm you a little. That all of that kind of left me in the pandemic, and so I just kept working, and I did go through a period of burnout.
Yeah.
But when you go through these periods, you have to acknowledge them. And I'm lucky enough where I have a very strong support system with my friends and family. And I learned too that I have a strong support system with my on the business side, because a lot of the time I had to send messages saying, "Hey, this I can't deliver on this. I just can't. Like I'm literally, it's just impossible." And the response I got back was, "Give yourself time. It's fine. Whatever time you need." And I was like, look at that. These people who it's business, they're giving me grace, more grace than I'm giving myself.
That's good. That's good.
So,
That's good.
yeah, Ida is very, very right. You definitely have to give yourself grace, and at the other end, give other people grace too.
I think I need to do a whole segment on this one, right? This topic, because so often as women, I think we are so ready to serve, please, in a lot of respects, right? To make sure we deliver. Not that men aren't, this isn't a men versus women conversation, but just knowing myself as a woman and talking to so many women who are goal oriented and just want to make sure the people around them, the things around that they're entrusted with are taken care of very well. Sometimes we put these deadlines in our head and these responsibilities in our head that maybe people around us aren't even expecting. And so we're kicking ourselves into overdrive. And in your case, if you would have never said to that client or whomever, "Hey, I need some more time," you would have been just burning yourself out even more to deliver something far faster than they might have even needed or expected. And so I think that's
a vicious cycle, because when you're operating at that level, you're not operating.
Yes, you're right. You're surviving. Yes. That's you're not your creative best when you're burning out. And it's so interesting. I want to make sure we talk about that point, that is to communicate what we need at different times, right? I need some time to do this. I need to ask for what we need as women, even when we're pursuing the things that are exciting to us, and to let people around us help us.
Yes.
And if you don't have people around you that will help you, get some new people, because you need people around you that will help you. And then I feel like we have to do it all ourselves. Like, I think that's such a big thing that I've been learning even in my own life in the past year and a half, especially with COVID. It's like, I don't need the Superwoman award. I don't care. You can have it if you want it. I'm not doing everything. I refuse to do everything anymore. It's not an award I want. I want the rested and recharged award. And that's the one I want. So to anyone that's watching, please take a moment to really just sink in. And even if you're pursuing whatever it is, to take a moment to give yourself grace, as Ida said, as Melissa said, and to ask for what you need so that you are rested and on the journey. Because being an ambitious woman is a lot of work, but you don't want to burn yourself out sooner than later.
And what you said is super important about receiving the help, because I am somebody who would not receive, like, I have gotten offers to get help and I just could not receive it. And so that was also a part of the burnout, is that I just could not, I was trying to do everything myself and just not, it was It's a mess.
It's that it's around the belief that if we don't do it, it won't get done, or it won't get done right, like we want it to get done, and that it won't be perfect, and it has to be that way. And I think someone has said it before in other, you know, situations, but um, would you prefer to spend 100% of your energy to get that thing done, or would you prefer to let someone else do it and spend 80% of their energy doing it when you have 100% of your energy back? You know what I mean? And I had to think about like the balance of time. And this is a totally different segue, but I feel so important to talk about this because you just kind of struck something up when we start talking about it. Is like I think about little things now. Like I order my groceries, not because I literally can see the grocery store from my house. Like I literally can. I'm not kidding. Like I can walk there in 2 minutes. But
Listen, I don't know why anybody goes to the store. I don't know why
I'm not
anybody.
doing it. I'm not doing it because that hour that I spend at the grocery store, I could be doing nothing. Not just talk about something else. I could be doing nothing. I'd be sit in my, in my patio and my deck, have some lemonade or whatever. I could sit and talk to my husband. I could do something else that's recharging me. That one task doesn't have to be me. And yes, by the way, they have messed up my orders. Okay, because I got honey maple ham as opposed to turkey this week, by the way. But you
Oh,
know
it's
what?
a big also.
It's okay because you know what? I'm not gonna die. I didn't have to go spend an hour to go get it. So I say all that. It's funny, but it's very real. We gotta on that pursuit of the goal. You gotta recharge and gotta rest. So I love that you brought that point up.
And don't
Um,
feel guilty about the rest. Do not.
no, do not feel guilty about the rest because I think, like you said, is it's it'll get done. It might just get done differently, but when you look back, so we just got a couple minutes left. So when you look back, um, on what you've been doing, like how do you think this adversity has made you someone that would actively help another woman or in the space, or another woman in general, knowing what you've had to go through?
Um. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the experience that I've had that's gonna affect that because I generally would normally help women
Mm-hmm.
progress, but um, I would say, it's important to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't believe in yourself, it's very difficult for other people to believe in you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's okay if people are not for you. Just
Mm-hmm.
move along and find the people that are for you. Um, don't worry about what you're wearing. Um, you know, as long as you feel good with what you are wearing or how your hair is done. I mean, I remember I used to I mean, I still have my hair straight now, but I recognized at one point that when I pitched with my hair curly, I would not get a good response.
Mm-hmm.
And for some time, I stopped wearing my hair curly, and I kind of regret that, because it wasn't really.
Yeah.
I didn't do it because like today, I just wanted to have my hair straight, right? But I did it because of the fact that I felt like I wasn't getting, and which is, to me, it's not standing up for who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to be, when you're building something, and something like me, where it's not a pretty thing and nobody, I'm not doing something that everybody is interested in. It's important to have people around you, um, attract people who are in it with you for the thing and not for what you're wearing or anything else.
Definitely.
Um, you know,
Oh,
also, like, if there's a woman out there who is being catty to you, do not perpetuate the cycle. Don't be catty back to her. She's going through something, or she's been through something, and that's why she's behaving the way that she has, and you
mm-hmm.
can help her to get out of that.
That's right.
um I don't know.
No, I mean that's it's
I
whatever
don't
you feel.
know. I
I
think
think those are good points.
yeah, for helping, and specifically for helping women, I think that's, those are the main things.
I
Just,
love it.
you are important. You
Mm,
know things. You don't let people put you down unnecessarily.
yeah. I love it that what you said too. It's some great lessons on our way to pursue purpose and passion. I think you saw Ida's comment there. It is so important to your point, because you said something, Melissa, and I'll say it real quick, is not everyone's in your business, right, or your industry. And that's because you're pursuing what's uniquely exciting to you. And I think that sometimes that's so important to remember, that our purpose and our passion is ours. It doesn't have to look like everyone else's, but there's room for us too to pursue it and to thrive in it. And you can be your authentic self in the process. And you just gave a great example of wearing your hair how you wanted to wear it, as opposed to what you thought was going to give you the most response. So I love those points that you shared. And the ladies have been responding as well in the chat. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your insight. And I'm wishing you the best as you continue your journey of pursuing your passion and purpose. And to any woman watching, make sure that you tune in to us next Thursday as well, again, for another episode at 12 p.m. Eastern, 12 to 12:30. So it's only 30 minutes of your day. Thank you so much again, and have a
Thank
great
you. Thank you for having me. And thanks, ladies
Absolutely.
in the chat.
Thanks.